Welcome.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to Jurassic World Evolution pre-show, episode 4 of 5 already. And as always, I am joined by the ever awesome Chris, also known as Chief Beef Belief. Hi Chris!
Hello everyone, thank you for listening again.
And welcome! So today guys, we are talking, as we already mentioned in the last episode. By the way, if you haven't watched the last episodes, now it's really time to watch them, because otherwise you lose track a little bit. The first 2 episodes are a little bit more lean and easy to listen, because it's just us fanning out about Jurassic World films and older games. In the second episode, also together with Bo Murrett from Frontier Developments. And in the last episode, we spent a closer look into bioengineering or breeding, but that was wrong. It was bioengineering. But anyways, we talked about what could be possible. And today, to round this all up, because in the next one we are going to talk what we can expect from the game. Hopefully we have a special guest from Frontier again. I'm not going to name it because we are not sure if it's going to work out yet. Alright, that was the formal stuff done. Okay, cool. We are going to start now, and we're talking about the Cobra engine, because I think we know quite a lot already about the engine, and this will also help us to understand what we can expect from the game engine-wise, and I believe that's an important one, because then we can already, talk about stuff which will definitely be possible, because we know already that the engine is capable of doing it, and we can talk about stuff where we may have some, I would say, reasonable thoughts that it might not be possible. So, first things first, this is a discussion about the engine, and an engine is, as it is literally just an engine, we can just estimate what it could be out of the other games, but all game is treated individually, so that means it is basing on the same engine and it follows some certain rules, but trust us, we are no developers whatsoever, so it's always, starting from scratch. You can only take some things that the engine is good at, right? And if we, for example, take some famous ones, for example, the CryEngine, we know that the CryEngine was very good at dealing with animations and with environmental stuff, whereas, for example, the Unreal Engine is just crazy good at lighting. So basically, this is what we can also take out of it. All right, so big intro here. I think the first thing, Chris, we have 2 games we can talk about, right? Where the engine is running at the moment in its, I would say, in its current version. Is the Cobra engine running for Elite and Planet Coaster. So what do you think? What are the strongest points of the engine? I think we can start talking about lighting first, right?
Yes, and just straight off the bat, Planet Coaster at sunset. Wow. Yes. I think that's, do you know what I mean? I think anyone listening to this who plays Planet Coaster will listen to what I just said and just go, yep, definitely. And you can even see that in the trailer of Jurassic, just how good it looks at that time of day. Not that it looks bad any other time of day, but I think it really stands out when the sun's glaring down on it.
If I've ever have time enough, I will edit them next to each other, so you can see a sundown from the trailer and also from Planet Coaster, just to get a feeling if you see what we meant by comparing it. But I think the lighting in general, also if you look at Elite, it is a very good one. Like, the lighting in the game is very, very nice. It is, I think it's like in all modern engines, it's there are differences in spotlights or in spheres as lighting sources, and you can also have it direct and indirect, which is very neat. And why we're going to talk about this is also important, because we have we don't just have a management game from a isometric kind of view where lighting is not that important potentially. We have a fully 3D rendered game, right? And people would complain if the lighting would be bad, but we can also say and confirm that we'll be looking awesome just by judging Elite and Planet Coaster from lighting point of view of the Cobra engine.
Well, if the lighting was bad, you would be able to tell right off the bat straight away, because it would look like you've made it in Google SketchUp.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
And
because the way the lighting has to bounce off stuff, it has to look real.
Yeah.
It has to.
Yeah. I mean, otherwise, it would, you know, if the lighting is too, I don't know, too oversaturated, you would definitely have the problem that it looks too comic-y. And Jurassic World looking too comic-y will definitely get some bad reviews because
and he doesn't look. It does not look comic-y as well. I mean, especially in the weather as well. That looks insane.
I mean, I
know Planet Coaster it's got an art style. I don't think it looks cartoony, but it's got an art style because you've got the guests that look, a little bit cartoony but real in the sense of like Disney, Pixar, that kind of style. But then you've got the rides that don't look like that, but they work together. You know what I mean? They bounce off each other.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about that later, very much in depth, because that's a very important point to talk about the guests and the overall look and feel of Planet Coaster, because we can take a lot of it, I believe, for the game. But yeah, I think what is also important to mention, also getting back now to the lighting itself. If you just remember from the first Jurassic Park, when the T-Rex is escaping and you have the red pyrotechnical, what's lens flare? I don't know. He's got something in his hand.
The flare,
that's so important, right? You just have the T-Rex in the shadows, and this shape of it coming out of the shadows is really scary. I mean, you don't really have this, but in the game, I know that people will be editing videos again, and there will be a lot of content on YouTube, definitely, of the game, and lighting is a very, very important part of it. Because if you want to make the game look awesome, you need a solid lighting, and we can now, I think, we don't need to talk too much more about the lighting, but we can confirm that will look awesome. And yeah.
Well, I mean, you mentioned flares. I mean, in Jurassic World, you see a guy light a flare, and that attracts the T-Rex to feed on the goat. So I think there might be a good chance we'll see a flare. Do you know what I mean? You'll see that attract things like that. So,
and we do have pyrotechnics in Planet Coaster as well, so you can already get a feeling for that. But anyways, then the next point, which we can also take from Planet Coaster and Elite, which is, it is kind of bounded to the lighting, but also to general other things of the engine, is the atmosphere. The atmosphere created out of the environmental, like the skybox, and there's so much more about just the lighting itself. There's also a lot going on with atmosphere, with some dust, with some fog. You don't really notice that, but engines also use those kind of things to render things more efficiently, right? So you've like kind of, which is not actually fog, but it makes things in the distance appear more foggy and stuff. So basically,
I think on that is just like, just before I lose it in my head, is because Jurassic World's gonna have weather.
Yes,
I think it's when it's raining and it's like. Not necessarily night, because we don't know if there's day and night cycles, but when it's dark, and I can just imagine like a pack of raptors in the mist and the rain, and that's going to look terrifying. Do you know what I mean? Like, so it's going to be it's certainly going to have a different feel, but in a way that it's a positive feel. Not to take anything away from the others, but Jurassic's gonna. It has to look overgrown at points. It has to look like an enclosure, like an animal, like something that live in the wild. And I think it's got the potential to be jaw-dropping at times. I really do.
Yeah. I believe. I think. I totally agree with that. That we have to get this feeling out of it. The atmosphere that will be created in the game has to fulfill this kind of desire of having these different kind of circumstances, giving you different kind of atmospheres, which is also a certain thing that makes the dramatic narration, how it's called, narrative drama. That's what I wanted to say. A little bit better. If it's getting foggy and it's getting rainy, and maybe a thunderstorm is rising, you get the feeling something is wrong, right? And the engine has
a sense of dread,
and the engine has to be capable of giving you that feel, because just plopping in VFX won't work for that. So the whole engine has to work together. I am, as I said, no developer. I have no idea how that works, but all we want to say is compare what we know from Elite and Planet Coaster, and we know that they have systems. However they work, I have no idea, but they are capable of doing this, so we can be very excited for this.
I think a positive thing is as well, like this isn't a engine they've bought. This is Frontier's engine, isn't it?
Yeah.
So they know it inside out. Yeah, they know it inside out. So and it keeps evolving. So I mean, what we think looks amazing now might look even better in Jurassic because they've had another year on development. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. And they will also put the learnings of Planet Coaster in there.
For sure.
And yeah, I think what we're gonna do is we take your video, Chris, of your enclosure you made of the Indominus Rex, and we will just loop it a little bit in the meantime while we're not talking, because this shows already how it could look like, because it is an enclosure. Obviously it's created in Planet Coaster, and it will look kind of different, but it will give you already a glimpse of what you can expect. And this is just Planet Coaster, and take the just as little word in inverted commas, because that's what we have at the moment, and it will look better definitely in JWE. And right, the next thing we are going to talk about, and this is also getting back to Elite as an example, which is also very important, like how an engine, or how the basic engine dealt with menus and with overlays, and with, you know, for a management game, that's not a point you should forget to look at, because the sci-fi feel is still, even though it's Jurassic World game, a tycoon-y game, there is kind of, you know, sci-fi in it, with all the menus and with all the kind of engine stuff. And
I think you're going to look at the game and it's going to feel like you're looking at an in-gen programming system. So it's slick, and it's fast, and it's modern. And do you know the scene when they go into the lab in Jurassic World and everything's on the screens and it's all blue, and do you know what I mean? It's just like, it's totally very Jurassic World, and I think that's what it's going to look like. I think
it's potentially the same feeling you had in the first Jurassic Park film, even though it's funny looking at it now with all the big bold monitors and stuff, but back then that was looking very modern.
That was state of the art. Yeah, of course it was.
So actually we can expect that, and this is why we're taking Elite in, because in Elite you have some very slick and very nice floating menus, and honestly, those menus are part of the game, so that's why we're talking about them as an engine feature. I know that's not totally correct, and people out there may freak out if I talk about an engine like that, because it's not the core of the engine that it deals with a menu like that. But I think taking this as a wider approach of talking about the engine behind the game, we can also talk about how it can deal with different menus and stuff. And I think, you know, it is also important to see, if you click on a dinosaur in the game, you will have some information going on about this dinosaur, and that has to work out perfectly with the engine. It has to be fast, it has to be informative,
slick. It has to. I want it to. This is what I want. I want it to be like, I want to click on a dinosaur, and I don't just want the stats. And of course, we'll get the stats. You know, we'll get, you know, oh, they're hungry, they're stressed. But I want it to have little details like InGen, the little InGen logo at the top. Do you know what I mean? Like little tiny details that go, oh yeah, this is Jurassic World. Do you know what I mean? Things like that. So, and I think that's going to make a big difference.
Yeah, and you definitely need an engine that is capable of doing this in real time, in the running game, and also in a performance that makes people in the year 2018 satisfied. So, looking at Elite, we can confirm that this shouldn't be a problem engine-wise, right? So, yeah. I guess now the next point is the most interesting one, and that's where we can actually loop your video forever, because this is basically what it is all about. A big aspect of a park management game in general, but also Jurassic World as a park management game, is foliage and terraforming, right? So if we are going to talk about what you are able to do in the park, and you have seen that already from the first rendered trailer, that there is kind of the cursor going and deleting the forest, and you're painting some sand down there, and you're plopping down a building. So obviously it will be very different from what we know from Planet Coaster. You won't need to build your enclosure part by part, or I don't know, your fence from single pieces. I'm 100% sure that that won't be the case. You don't need that level of detail, because it's a different approach of a game.
It's different. It's a completely different type of game. I mean, yes, it's similar in the genre that I'm assuming we're all interested. People listen to this are interested in the genre, but you'll know that it doesn't always have to be a Lego set. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
like, do you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't always have to be that integral.
No, I don't want it to be.
I don't think I'd want it to be, because if you took away if you didn't take away, if you gave us the option of that, you would take away the Jurassic feel.
Yep. I totally agree. But what we wanted to focus on is, and this is potentially one of the most important part of the game, foliage and terraforming. I don't know if terraforming is, so I don't know if we are able to terraform much. It would also be realistic to say, okay, that's what you get, and you can just slightly adjust the island.
Yeah, for sure, because you can't in real life. They're not going to knock down a mountain, are they? So
that's it. Basically, so this might not be, but how the landscape is done and what you can do in Planet Coaster, also with the foliage and with painting the terrain, because that's important.
Just on that note, because you said you're gonna loop my video in the background of this. I spent ages and ages trying to find the right shape of the island and things. You can see like water around it. At one point I needed a little bit of water, so it took me so long.
Yeah.
So
that won't be the case.
No, that's it. I do want to be able to do my terrain and different things, but maybe not to the extent. Do you know what I mean? Of how long it took on that. And that's not to say it took long, because it does take long. I mean, the island that I made was quite big, so I would have liked some bigger tools in Planet Coaster, but that's just because I was on a big scale. So yeah, I just wanted to point that out, that it can take a long time than maybe and on a scale of something bigger. We don't need it to be as intricate.
No, but I think what we can talk about is how they look and how they behave, and the foliage in Planet Coaster is beautifully animated. It also moves slightly in the wind, and you can also see this already in the trailer when the T-Rex is running in the rain, and you can see to the left and to the right when it's very windy because the storm is. All the foliage is moving alongside. And this is very, very nicely done, and that's also again a system we will have, as it seems, environmental influences like wind, which makes then also this all. It just makes it feel alive. And also, if you look at what Chris has built, you can really tell how this works together with the foliage, because potentially, and this is something you can really take from one game to the other, an engine does make things look kind of similar. So if you have an engine that makes a theme park game look that good as Planet Coaster looks, it will also be able to make this game look good. And it doesn't really matter if you're able to place each fern and each tree individually, or if you just get a brush. And I would be happy about a brush, to be honest. But you know what I mean. There is different.
I do think it will be like that, though. I don't think it will be individual trees. I think it will be brush size, and you click and drag, and that pops up the trees. But just on that note, just while I'm looking at it, when you edit this, if you can pull up the picture of the Deinonychus and the mountains in the background and the trees, that you could cut the Deinonychus out and you could say that's Planet Coaster. Seriously, I think like that's how you can tell it's the same engine, and that's a positive thing. I mean, because you don't want it to stray too much, because you don't want it. Frontier are making this; they want to put their spin on it, of course. And I think if it looked completely different, people wouldn't like it, but they might just be like, oh, what do I do? Oh, okay, that's weird. That's different. Do you know what I mean? So,
but now I think thank you for this perfect segue, because this is basically what I wanted to talk about when you just first mentioned, and I wanted to back this up a little bit because that's the perfect moment to talk about. One thing that the engine seems to be perfectly made for is to make things look different, but in a good way, if you zoom in and out. Like that, what you mentioned at the beginning, that the people in Planet Coaster look kind of cartoony, that comes from the ability to zoom into the very, very small details. You can even see how their mouths move and how their facial expressions are, if they're happy, if they're not happy, if they're hungry or thirsty. And you can zoom in right away. And they also explained why they did this and why they went for a cartoony style to avoid a discussion about genders and different nationalities and stuff like that. So because you're in a known world, that makes things a little bit more easy, right? But if you zoom out in that game, and I can show you millions of screenshots where you can't really tell if that's a real screenshot or not, because the people from distance, they look real. Their movement looks real, their expressions look real, their total, their sizes in comparison to the buildings look real, and everything else, like the lighting makes it perfectly fitting into the situation, and it feels as if there were real people in it. And if you zoom out and in, it's different, but the engine seems to, I don't know, actually, I can't really explain that, because if you go in and you make a screenshot of people in comparison to, as you said, a very highly detailed coaster, you would get the feeling, oh wow, how well does this work together? I have a bad feeling about this. But it works. It just works. And
the park feels alive, and I think they've absolutely nailed it. I really do.
And I think that's something, as you said, they won't make it worse. They will definitely improve. So you can definitely tell that the park from a distance view will look gorgeous. And I believe this game, as we also talked about now a lot, will definitely be more a management game where you will play a lot more from far away distance view. And that makes also the end. I think that really pays into the strength of the engine. That makes it really look good.
Yeah. I like what you said then, is you'll play a bit further out, and I think that's true, because for people who've played Operation Genesis, you'll know what it means, because you'll be like, oh, okay, so is that. And then you zoom in, the guest looks small, and you realise it's because you've been looking at a fence with a T-Rex. Do you know what I mean? So, you will definitely play a bit more zoomed out on this one, but I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Because you want to see the size of these T-Rexes. You want to see the size of the Brachiosaur. Do you know what I mean? Things like that. So.
And I mean, what also is pretty cool, what we can also say, and this is also very interesting, from all the screenshots you have seen from Jurassic World Evolution so far, they are all taken with the in-game tools that we will have later on as well. So there is no dummy camera or something. It's basically the same as we have in Planet Coaster. Everything they recorded is basically done in the game that we also have at hands. So that confirms already, which may have been already obvious for you, but I think it's not that obvious in this kind of genre. You don't even have it's not always safe that you can zoom into this angle as we have, for example, of the Deinonychus, because it's very close, right? And this is not a view you would have in a tycoon game, in a normal tycoon game, even in 2018. So that's very cool to have this ability.
Yeah, I mean, a Deinonychus, I'm trying to reckon the size, 5 foot, 6 foot, something like that. So you're going to be able to get that close. And and the only footage I believe that was not in game was the announcement trailer that was rendered.
Yes,
so that was to show us what kind of game it would be.
I mean, they did the same with Planet Coaster as well.
Yeah, and I mean, a great example is how close it looks to that.
Yes. So maybe somebody made this trailer also in Planet Coaster to compare them. I don't know who that was, but
I do. It may have been you.
Yeah. Anyways, it looks very, very close, and this is a good thing, because that's also giving you guys out there an idea of how good they will be able to fulfill the ideas they showed in the initial trailer. But anyways, moving on to another feature of an engine, how they deal with animations. And as we know, and I think that's for people out there not too obvious, but Frontier developments in general, as far as I know, correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, because I think you know as well, they are all hand animating things. There is no motion capturing, as far as I know, which would be also a little bit hard, because there are no dinosaurs out there that can be motion captured.
Of course, yeah. I mean, yeah.
You can motion capture chickens, but anyway.
I suppose you could motion capture a rhino, but I mean that's probably the closest you're going to, and a giraffe. But I believe that they're hand animating. Yeah.
Yeah. As far as I know and talk to them, they all do hand animations, and well, it's not an engine thing, but from the animations in Planet Coaster of the entertainers, and in particular, for example, it's a bad example, I know, but it's the only one we have so far. If you look at the animation of Gulpy, the T-Rex mascot in Planet Coaster, if you look at it, how well this is animated, with his tongue moving out of his mouth, with his tail swinging around a little bit. And obviously, yes, it is moving as an actual costume or mascot costume would work. But this shows you how much into detail Frontier is working. So you can expect from those animals in the game to act and move and feel real.
Yeah, and I think they're gonna look heavy as well. And I think that's important because, I mean, the most common size of a dinosaur was about the size of a pony, but in Jurassic, obviously, we're going to get bigger ones and stuff. And they need to look heavy, and they need to feel like these however ton animals are walking around. Like on Jurassic Park Cobra and Genesis, when you got too close, the camera would kind of shake, the ground would shake to show how heavy they are. Like we might get that as well. That'd be cool, but I don't think we're gonna have a problem with the animals looking absolutely amazing. I really don't.
Yeah, totally. I want to go now to the last point and just build on the point of the animation. There is one thing: if you have an animation, it will be bounded to the animals, as you said, and they feel heavy. But what they have to do to feel heavy is move. And there is one thing that has been introduced with Planet Coaster, and this is the last thing we are going to talk about, and I think because it's the most interesting thing to talk about, because this is such a important thing in regard to a tycoon game and a game where animals also in. And in Planet Coaster there was a special guest brain and a pathfinding tool. It's not a tool, it's a system as part of the Cobra engine revealed, and I'm gonna put in some footage out of the engine, how it deals with it in the development mode, because it's very interesting that they all have their own brains and move along, and you know, also if we look at the go-kart track of Planet Coaster, they also don't have a go-kart track as it was in the past, that all carts are just glued to one straight line where they always would follow. They are also having kind of an AI thingy, although it's a little bit basic, but they have one, right? And that means the engine and their system is capable of doing individualized pathfinding things. And now this is very interesting because that's making the difference in this kind of game. Just imagine you have animals, and each individual animal has a different approach on intelligence and movement, and you have even interactions between groups. And if you look to the trailer again very closely, you can see that it seems that raptors are already moving in a group, right? They do interact with each other, and it's not just made for the trailer. I believe they will have a system that those things are hunting together, and I believe it's not pre-programmed, it's not scripted, and that would be. And I'm basing this off the assumption that they're basing on their brilliant way of having the guest brains work. Obviously, it's not perfect, but it's a huge step ahead, right? And if you have this system, obviously also for the guests in the park, right? They will be attracted as people from coasters. They will be attracted by different dinosaurs. So yeah, we can talk about that. But far more interesting, I find the thing about the dinosaurs. That
I think a perfect example of how it could work is, say you've got a pack of 10 velociraptors, and then one velociraptor wanders off and notices a piece of meat that's been thrown in, and the other raptor's quite far away, and then the raptor will stand still, smell it, and then kind of communicate. You know, I'm not going to do an impression, but you know, like the raptor sounds, and then the other raptors will come over to investigate. Like that would look so real, and that's a good example of like the guest, like you say, like the guest brain, Planet Coaster guest brain, working, and then kind of it figuring it out, having individual brains rather than, oh, okay, all these raptors will know that food's there. Does that make sense? So
yeah, totally, because like that will also make or give you the ability to play the game in different styles, right? As they introduced, you will you will be in the position to play in 3 different kind of styles, right? And that makes sense. And then you can also say, okay, what we talked about last episode, just imagine you have different features of an animal, more aggressive, more intelligent, less intelligent, I don't know, you know, and that would also pay into this system, that they have then different attributes that also affect the pathfinding. That makes things very interesting now, because just imagine you have a very intelligent one, and then you have to always send in your staff members on a different door, because otherwise
they'll know.
They'll know. But on the other hand side, if you have, for example, you're just going with your research for just dump animals, just to speak so, that would potentially attract less people, but you also don't need to spend too many thoughts on how you get the food in, because they're just dump and they don't know that people bringing it in. I know that's just guessing, but that would
it's a good idea, because I think a Velociraptor would be able to. I mean, Jurassic's Velociraptors would be able to find something a lot easier than a Stegosaur would. Do you know what I mean? Because a Stegosaurus, I believe, has 2 brains, but it's a lot less intelligent than Jurassic's Velociraptors.
That's basically like with whales.
I mean, going back to the go-karts, because Tycoon 1, 2, and 3, I think they could move around, but you know, in separate paths. But Planet Coasters, like, they can spin out and things like that. Do you know what I mean? So it's I know that's per game, but if you imagine the Stegosaur is Roller Coaster Tycoon 2 and Velociraptor's Planet Coaster, do you know what I mean? Like, the difference, it should be there. Yeah.
Alrighty, cool. So, guys, I think that was a very long episode again, but I think that was important to talk about all these things, and hopefully you got some new information out of it, because I am fully aware of the fact that many of the things we have talked about in the last episodes are already covered quite a lot on YouTube. You can see and tell from the schedule that I haven't been copying, because basically I planned this for weeks and months, and the only thing is we don't have that much time. I'm not doing it for a living or something, so we need to do it in between. But I guess this episode features now some new informations which haven't been covered that often. Essentially, I haven't found anything about this. Time being now, I don't know if potentially tomorrow or something there will be released, but I think that's something very new. So I would encourage you to go down there in the comments below and give us all your information you have about the engines, because we definitely missed out something. And also, if we did say something wrong, which may have happened because we are totally no programmers at all, please correct us, and we're gonna mention that maybe next episode. But anyways, that was just as a little information, so that you don't take us wrong or just build.
Yeah, I mean, we're not programmers, but just on this, just before we leave, I know we're not touching on this in this episode, but I also think it's going to sound amazing as well. I think the game's going to sound like Jurassic. Do you know what I mean? So yeah.
Yeah, I know. Okay, I have to tell. Sorry, I need to bring this in now as a little side note, because at Frontier Export we talked to Matthew Florence, who's doing the sounds for Planet Coaster, and he talked us through some little stories where the sounds of Planet Coaster come from. And I'm wondering when I'm going to listen to sounds in Jurassic World Evolution, and then I'm trying to figure how the hell he made those sounds. Basically, I'm not going to talk about this because that's it would lead us too far. But fact is, he's always taking a microphone with him, and if he's listening to something interesting, he's recording it. And so, believe me or not, but you can expect having sounds that maybe even from, I don't know, public toilets or something.
Well, I mean, I imagine there'll be toilets in the game, so we're going to need that sound. So yeah,
right. Alrighty. Thanks, Chris, again for being here. And
no, I very much enjoy them, and I hope everyone enjoys the content.
Yes, enjoy the content, please. Yeah, but guys, have a good one, and see you then in the next episode, which is the last one, unfortunately. But have a good one, and bye-bye. Also, bye, Chris.
See you later.
Bye.